Hello, and welcome to Book Dreams, the podcast for everyone who loves books and has ever wondered about them. I'm Julie Sternberg, author of a number of children's books, including Like Pickle Juice on a Cookie and its sequels, and the Top Secret Diary of Celie Valentine series.
And I'm Eve Yohalem. I'm also a children's book author. My books include The Truth According to Blue and Cast Off, The Strange Adventures of Petra de Winter and Brom Broen. Usually in this podcast, we try to answer a book-related question. But today, December 24th, Christmas Eve, we decided we would reflect on our year.
Do you want to start?
Well, I just want to start by noting that we launched in March and we started a podcast about books at a time when we were barely able to read. Just kind of the irony of that. Those early days in the pandemic when you could only read novels with lots of violence. And I was reading something like a book about witch trials in East Hampton in the 17th century, but both of us were reading about 2 pages a day. And yet that was the moment where we started this podcast, which is actually, I think, fitting because we started the podcast and we had the idea for it last fall 2019, because books bring us joy.
Yeah.
I have to say, this podcast has brought me so much joy this year,
Yes.
and so much more than joy. I've been reflecting on this a lot. It's been my way of being out in the world and out in the world unmasked, that we've been able to meet so many people that we never would have met at all, but certainly not now when people are trying to stay inside. I mean, people like Edie Eger, I think I spent that entire interview with a lump in my throat and not a sad lump, a good lump in my throat. I'm guessing you feel very similarly.
Very similarly. First of all, there were the people that I was a fangirl and still am a fangirl for who agreed to come on the podcast.
Yes, that never gets old. That we asked and they said yes.
I love 1,000 Books to Read Before You Die. And so we asked Jim Mustick if he would come on, and he did. We got to have this fabulous conversation with him. I'm a huge fan of Nancy Pearl, who's a librarian. For years, I've heard her recommendations and read her recommendations on public radio, but also, folks we didn't know about who we just reached out to because they do something interesting, like Trisha Eva Walker, who writes in so many different genres. And what a delight it was to speak with her. And Christina Baker Klein, also the historical fiction writer who we didn't know and we got to interview. And you just want to be best friends with
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And we learned so many new things.
Yes.
I mean, in addition to all of the epidemiology that we learned about this year, rare books, it was this mysterious world. Now we know a little bit about it. Illuminated manuscripts, such a fascinating field. And then, of course, there was that moment with Kanohi Ishikawa where we learned about the origin story for Beloved, that just, shivers up and down moment.
No. And I read books that I wouldn't have read. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we read Edwidge Danticat's Everything Inside, which I loved, and we chose it together. And I don't know that on my own, I would have come up with it. And it was just marvelous.
Yeah.
And I had a book on my shelf. I've had it for years. Dear Genius, The Letters of Ursula Nordstrom, who's a very famous children's book editor. I bought it because I was like, I should read this.
Yeah.
I'm a children's book writer. I should read this book. But it just sat there until I thought, this would be a great podcast episode. And so we reached out to Leonard Marcus, and I finally read the book, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, I remember for that episode, I had never heard of the book. You told me about it. And then you said to me, it's very, very long. Don't feel like you have to read the whole thing. Just skim a couple of the letters. And then I read the entire thing because It was that great.
Getting to talk to him also about the process of putting that book together was such a great experience. The podcast, honestly, it would have been great in any year. And this year it was just a lifeline.
It was.
I really believe that.
I could not agree more. And in addition to all the reasons that we're talking about, one of the most meaningful things about this year for me is the deepening of friendship.
Aww.
You and I, we've been friends for many years, but we weren't everyday friends, much less 10 times or more a day friends as we are now. And as we get older, we make fewer very, very dear
It's
friends. So I
true.
cherish our friendship so much. And it has been a bright spot for me and a lifeline for me.
Stop it. You are going to make me cry.
No, I don't, I don't
Really
mean to.
bad
And
in the
you know
same
what?
way.
And also, I've been thinking about Gianfranco, whom I knew
Mhm.
before the podcast, just as an acquaintance, a friend of a friend. And at this point, he's more like chosen family. To feel like I have two deep friendships this year has been a real, real gift.
You're right. Again, this of all years. What a thing to treasure.
Yeah, to be able to deepen friendships at a time where you're trying not to leave your house is
Right.
really,
Right.
again, the irony.
Right.
Do you have goals for the podcast for next year?
Oh, interesting. I don't have specific goals. I have more general thoughts. One thing that I've really loved about producing the podcast is all that we've done along the way to learn more about podcast production. So, we sort of think about, well, this title seems to work. This kind of title doesn't seem to work. This technology is working for us. This other had these problems. How are we going to fix those problems? What works in terms of interview questions and what doesn't? So I love what we've done to analyze things in that way, and I look forward to continuing to implement all of that and continue to grow. And I love the ideas that we have had that keep shifting, and I can't wait to see where they go in terms of, do we want to make some tweaks to content? Do we want to have many episodes? Do we want to have an entirely separate spin-off podcast? What would that look like? So I'm really excited.
Yeah, there's still so much to learn. And you said this so much better than I could have, because my note for what I wanted to say in terms of next year was get better. And what
Right, right.
So, yeah, the way you said it.
Yeah.
I do have
And
one thing to add for next year that I hope to do with the podcast, which is go on the road.
yeah.
Before the pandemic, we had
Mhm.
some ideas for episodes. There's a diner in Connecticut that is also a book swap, and we were going to go and talk to the owners.
I'm
We
gonna
were going to,
cry again.
I
We
know,
were so excited.
we were going to go to the Grolier Club, which is the oldest bibliographic club in North America. They were having some fantastic exhibitions, and we were going to talk to the curator, and it was going to be so
Yeah.
cool.
I couldn't go to the Rare Book Expo.
Yep. We need to go to the antiquarian book fair together. I want to seek out museums and libraries that have illuminated manuscripts.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah, I'd like to go out into the world with Book Dreams.
I love that idea. And I want to take concrete steps to further some of the goals that we've revealed on Book Dreams. So we've talked a lot about wanting to open a bookstore. I doubt that we will have a brick and mortar bookstore in 2021, but I would love to continue the process of learning what that would involve and sharing some of that with listeners, maybe taking some concrete steps, like possibly a pop up if that's possible.
We do have a secret plan to do a nonprofit pop up bookstore next fall during the holidays, but it's secret.
It's secret, don't tell anyone, because Eve has this fear of failure, and so does Julie. She just hides it differently. So,
Yes, so lots of good things to look forward to and so many things to be grateful for.
yes. And thank you for everyone who shared this experience with us. Please get in touch. Please. We love hearing from you, whether it's reviewing us, which is always great, and we read those, we really do, or emailing us at contact@bookdreamspodcast.com. We read those, we respond.
We really do want to hear from all of you, and we are so grateful for all of you who've listened and read with us.
Yes. Happy holidays. Have a wonderful start to the new year, and looking forward to future episodes.
Yes, and until 2021, happy book dreaming.
Happy book dreaming.
Come listen to Book Dreams with Julie and Eve.